Today in this video, we will review a basic router, and most of you are probably familiar with this basic router. Its name is Cudy. Among all the routers currently available in the market, I think this router is good compared to its price. Despite being a very low-cost basic router, this router has 4 LAN ports. However, it does not have a 5G signal option. Still, I find its Wi-Fi coverage to be fairly satisfactory. We bought this router from a shop in Bangladesh for 1,300 taka. If we search the Bangladeshi websites, we can see that they are selling this router for 1,300 taka. Let's see what features are available in this 1,300 taka router, and I will show you how to set it up with your broadband service. On the back of the router, you will see an IP address for logging into the user interface. I am logging into the user interface through that IP in the browser. No user ID is required here. You can log in using just the password, which you can find on the back of your router. After logging in, you will see a home screen like this, where the status of each option will be displayed. At the top, you can monitor your bandwidth usage through a wave signal. We will start from the very beginning, so we have come to the Quick Setup section. Inside the Quick Setup option, we first see an option called Operation Mode. At the very top, we see the Wireless Router option, followed by Wireless Access Point, then Wireless Extender, WISP, and Client. It seems almost impossible to talk about all the setup options in one video. Therefore, I am starting with the Wireless Router option first. If needed, I will discuss the other options in subsequent videos and try to create separate videos for setting them up and resolving related issue. First, you need to select your time zone related to your location. Next, you will need to select the type of your internet connection. In this field, we will drop down to the protocol option, and here we see 3 options. First is DHCP, then PO, and lastly, static or fixed IP. If your network operates with automatically generated IP addresses, then here you need to select DHCP mode. This means dynamic IP. If your router is set up for a dial-up or PO network, then your network service provider will provide you with a username and password. You'll use these credentials to log in and establish a connection to your network. Lastly, if your network uses a static or fixed IP address, your service provider will give you an IP address, a subnet address, and a gateway IP. You'll use these to establish a connection to your network. Currently, I'm using a dynamic connection on this router, so I'll start directly from the dynamic option. When you select Dynamic Network, you usually don't need to do much. Typically, when we establish a connection using a router-to-router cable, we often configure it as a dynamic network. In this case, since I am also establishing a router-to-router connection, I am using a dynamic connection. Here, you just need to click Next, and that will be enough. Next, when we click on the Next option, we see some information about our wireless settings. Since I had already set up the wireless settings, it shows that information here. In your case, the default wireless name and password will be shown. You can change these as needed, and then click Next to proceed. So far, we have completed the basic tasks or setup work for our router. In this case, we have configured a router-to-router setup. You can complete your necessary tasks using this video if your ISP provides you with the required information. Next, you can see that we are now inside General Settings. So, let's take a look at the protocols and options available within General Settings. We will now work on the same settings we dealt with earlier, but this time there are many customization options. First, we can see the WAN mode. As I explained in detail in the previous settings, within the protocol, we have DHCP, then we will find the PO option, and finally, the static IP option. You need to configure it here in the same way as I showed you before. From here, you can change the MAC clone and NTU if you want. WISP stands for Wireless Internet Service Provider. WISP is becoming very popular in many countries around the world because it does not require any cables for connection. However, WISP also has another use, such as using it as a repeater or extender if needed. There are several limitations when using WISP, such as the connection not being very stable and not providing very high speeds. Now on the screen, I have tried to show you how to connect to another router using WISP. If you have 2 routers at home and want to establish a connection without wires, you can use this option to connect to that router with a password. For instance, if there is a router on the upper floor of your building and you want to connect this router to it without cables, you can use this option to establish a connection with good Wi-Fi signal reception. Even if the signal is somewhat weak, it will still work. This way, you can establish a nice connection to the internet on your floor without any wires, using the upper floor or the same floor's router. Here you can see that we have come back to the Wi-Fi settings. Although I have shown you the Wi-Fi settings before, from here you can further customize the Wi-Fi settings if you want. So, let's see what other options are available within the Wi-Fi settings. From here, you can customize the Wi-Fi channel, change the transmit power, and then there are options like max stations and hidden network. By using the hidden network option, you can keep your Wi-Fi signal hidden from everyone so that no one can find your network easily. The next option is VPN. I think this is the most attractive option of this router. I have never seen such an option in any other budget router before. This is truly commendable. Through this router, you can use 3 types of VPN protocols. First, you can use the router's VPN as a PPTP client. Next, you can use it as an L2TP client. The most popular VPN protocol, WireGuard, can also be used on this router. You can directly upload and install the WireGuard VPN configuration file here. Additionally, you can manually set up the WireGuard VPN client configuration. In short, it's absolutely fantastic. You can see that this router has a lot of options. So, let's elaborate on each option one by one now. At the very top, we see an option called LAN. From here, we can change the LAN IP addresses. Looking at the next option, we can see it is called Guest Network. Through this Guest Network, you can enable a guest network. In this case, you can provide internet access to guests visiting your home through this option. The next option is the DHCP server. The function of this server is to automatically provide and assign IP addresses, default gateways, and other network parameters to client devices. It relies on the standard protocol known as Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, or DHCP, to respond to broadcast queries by clients. IPv6 is the next generation Internet Protocol (IP) standard, intended to eventually replace IPv4, the protocol many Internet services still use today. Every computer, mobile phone, and any other device connected to the Internet needs a numerical IP address in order to communicate with other devices. Currently, many Internet service providers, ISPs, provide Internet connections using IPv6. If your ISP provides an IPv6 connection, you need to configure it from here. In that case, you will definitely need to seek help from your ISP for the IPv6 configuration. Through this, you can configure IPTV and VLAN settings from your router. IPTV is essentially a means of watching television via the Internet. Some ISPs provide a set-top box through which you can watch clear television beautifully. As for VLAN, we know that this option allows you to configure VLAN settings. The Internet Group Management Protocol, IGMP, is a protocol that allows several devices to share one IP address so they can all receive the same data. IGMP is a network layer protocol used to set up multicasting on networks that use the Internet Protocol version 4, IPv4. Quality of Service, QoS, is a set of technologies that work on a network to guarantee its ability to dependably run high-priority applications and traffic under limited network capacity. QoS technologies accomplish this by providing differentiated handling and capacity allocation to specific flows in network traffic. Navigate to DNS settings. Once logged in, look for the DNS settings. Change DNS server addresses. Find the fields for the primary and secondary DNS servers. Enter the DNS addresses you want to use. For example, Google DNS 8.8, 8.8, and 8.8, 4.4 Cloudflare DNS 1.1, 1.1, and 1.0, 0.1 OpenDNS 208.67, 222.2, 22, and 208.67, 220.2, save and apply settings. After entering the custom DNS addresses, save the settings. The router may need to reboot for the changes to take effect. Dynamic DNS, DDNS or DON DNS. is a service that automatically updates the domain name system DNS to reflect any changes in the IP address of a host or domain. This is particularly useful for devices or servers that do not have a static IP address, as it allows them to be reached via a consistent domain name despite changes in their IP addresses. Static routing is a type of network routing technique where routes are manually configured and entered into the routing table by a network administrator. This method does not rely on dynamic routing protocols to determine the best path to a destination. Instead, it uses predefined paths. How it works: the network administrator manually enters the routes into the routing table on each router. Port forwarding is a network technique used to allow external devices to access services on a private network. This is achieved by redirecting communication requests from one address and port number combination to another, while the packets traverse a network gateway, such as a router or firewall. Port forwarding translates the external IP address and port to an internal IP address and port. Port triggering is a dynamic form of port forwarding that allows incoming traffic on a specific port to be temporarily forwarded to a designated internal port. It is typically used for applications that require multiple ports to communicate, such as online games or video conferencing tools. An internal device, for example a computer or game console, initiates a connection to an external server using a specific port, trigger port. A demilitarized zone, DMZ, in networking is a physical or logical subnetwork that separates an internal local area network, LAN, from untrusted external networks, typically the Internet. The purpose of a DMZ is to add an additional layer of security to an organization's LAN. It acts as a buffer zone between the internal network and external networks, such as the Internet, to mitigate potential threats. Online detection refers to methods and techniques used to determine whether a device, service, or user is currently active and connected to a network or the Internet. This can be applied in various contexts, such as detecting if a server is operational, if a user is logged into a platform, or if a device is connected to a network. Ping, sending an ISMP echo request to a device and waiting for an echo reply to determine if the device is online and reachable. Example: ping www.example.com. TTL, or time to live, is a mechanism used in networking to limit the lifespan or lifetime of data in a network. It is a field in the header of IP packets that specifies the maximum number of hops, transits from one router to another, that the packet can take before it is discarded. This prevents packets from endlessly circulating in case of routing loops and helps in efficient network traffic management. Wake on LAN, WAL, is a networking standard that allows a computer to be turned on or awakened remotely by a network message. This message is usually sent by a program executed on another device within the local area network, LAN. WAL is commonly used for remote management of systems, where administrators can power on computers without being physically present. How Wake on LAN works: Magic Packet. The core of WAL is the magic packet, which contains the MAC address of the target computer. Universal Plug and Play, UPnP, is a set of networking protocols that allows devices on a local network to discover each other and establish functional network services. UPnP is designed to support zero-configuration networking, enabling seamless connectivity and interoperability among devices without the need for manual setup. A firewall is a network security system that monitors and controls incoming and outgoing network traffic based on predetermined security rules. It acts as a barrier between a trusted internal network, such as a corporate LAN or home network, and untrusted external networks, like the Internet. Firewalls are essential for protecting networks from unauthorized access, data breaches, malware, and other cyber threats. MAC filtering, or MAC address filtering, is a security feature used in some wireless routers and access points to control which devices are allowed to connect to the network. MAC addresses are unique identifiers assigned to network interfaces, for example, Ethernet cards, Wi-Fi adapters by manufacturers. MAC filtering allows network administrators to create a whitelist or blacklist of specific MAC addresses, thereby controlling access to the network based on these addresses. IP filtering also known as IP address filtering, is a network security technique used to control access to or from a network based on the IP addresses of devices or users. It allows network administrators to define rules that permit or deny network traffic based on source IP addresses, destination IP addresses, or both. IP filtering can be implemented using firewalls, routers, or other network devices capable of filtering packets based on IP addresses. Domain filtering, in the context of networking and security, typically refers to the capability of filtering or controlling access based on domain names rather than IP addresses. This can be useful for managing access to websites or services based on their domain names, rather than individual IP addresses. Here's how domain filtering works and its applications. IP/MAC binding, also known as IP and MAC address binding, is a network security feature that links an IP address to a specific MAC address. This ensures that only a device with a specified MAC address can use the assigned IP address. It helps to prevent IP spoofing and unauthorized devices from connecting to the network. Wi-Fi Protected Setup, WPS, is a network security standard that simplifies the process of connecting devices to a secure wireless network. It is designed to make it easier for users to set up a secure Wi-Fi network without needing to manually enter long and complex passwords. WPS works through various methods, including a push button, PIN entry, and NFC. Wi-Fi scheduling is a feature available on many modern routers that allows users to set specific times when the Wi-Fi network is enabled or disabled. This can be useful for managing internet access in homes or offices, such as turning off Wi-Fi during night hours or limiting access during certain periods of the day. An application layer gateway, ALG, is a network component or feature that manages specific application protocols and enhances the capabilities of NAT, network address translation, routers, and firewalls. ALG operates at the application layer of the OSI model, which allows it to understand and interpret the payload data of specific application protocols. This enables it to facilitate the proper routing and handling of these protocols through NAT devices, which might otherwise interfere with or block the protocol's operation. Setting the correct time zone on a router is important for accurate logging, scheduling, and time-based features. The time zone setting ensures that all recorded events, such as log entries, scheduled tasks, and security certificates, reflect the correct local time. Updating the firmware of a router is an important task that can improve its performance, add new features, fix bugs, and enhance security. Firmware is the software that runs on the router, and manufacturers periodically release updates to ensure the device operates efficiently and securely. Backing up and restoring router settings is an important practice to safeguard your network configuration. This can be helpful in case of a reset, firmware update, or any other changes that might require you to revert to a previous configuration. Local management and remote management are two methods for administering and configuring network devices, such as routers, switches, and firewalls. Each method has its own use cases, benefits, and considerations. Refers to accessing and configuring a network device from within the same local area network, LAN. This typically involves connecting directly to the device via Ethernet or Wi-Fi. Remote management allows administrators to access and configure network devices from a remote location outside the local network. This can be done over the internet or through a secure VPN connection. Through the admin account settings, you can provide your router password and change that password as well. Through the language option, you can select your preferred language for using your router. In this case, your user interface language will be translated into your native language. The time reboot option allows you to schedule a specific time for your router to automatically reboot daily or on specific days. Once set, the router will reboot itself at the designated time without requiring manual intervention. You can remotely reboot the router using this reboot option. Resetting via web interface, soft reset. Resetting a router or network device generally refers to restoring it to its factory default settings. This action erases all configuration changes made by the user, including network settings, firewall configurations, and admin passwords. Here's how to perform a reset, typically done through the router's web interface or physical reset button. Quality control on a router or network device typically refers to the ability to manage the status and behavior of its lead indicators. These indicators serve various purposes, such as showing power status, network activity, Wi-Fi signal strength, and more. Controlling these LEDs can help manage power consumption, reduce distractions, or customize the appearance of the device. WR069, also known as CWMP CPE WAN Management Protocol, is a widely adopted protocol used in the telecommunications industry for remote management of customer premises equipment, CP, such as routers, gateways, modems, and set-top boxes. It enables Internet Service Providers, ISPs, and network administrators to remotely configure, monitor, and manage these devices deployed at customers' premises without needing physical access. Finally, there is the diagnostics option, where you can perform necessary diagnostics on your router. Firstly, you can obtain essential information regarding ping, traceroute, NSLookup, and system logs related to your router here. Using these tools can help you troubleshoot network issues, verify connectivity, and gather essential information about your router's performance and configuration.